Oh, have you got someone watching? I think we'll wait for... Since you're here, can you... If you can see this, can you leave a message in the chat so that I know you're here? Oh, no, they left. Why is the spacing so weird? Oh, because of bricks. Okay. I'm still waiting for other people to come in, so we're just gonna wait a bit more. Oh, there are 2 people now. But I don't see you in the participants page, but I'm sure you're watching anyway. Okay, so maybe I'll wait for 2 more people to come and then I'll start the video. I see 2 other people watching the video, so I guess we can start. I'm not sure if you guys can send messages in the chat, but I'm just gonna start anyway. So welcome to the free composition workshop. My name is Khari Fahan. I have a group on Facebook where I share tips, strategies, and techniques to learn English. And today we'll be looking at some simple strategies basically to write compositions. It's actually from a book that I'm working on. It's called The Storyteller Script, and I'm hoping to get it done by next year. So hopefully when it's done, you guys can support me by purchasing it next year. Anyway, so these are mainly the 5 things that I want to go through for this workshop. How planning a mods can help in planning, that's number 1. Number 2, why planning is really important before writing. Number 3, I'm going to give you a simple template for planning. I hope it's not too challenging, but I really think that a reliable template is really important. Then a simple technique to write in order to engage your reader. And lastly, I think this is actually under number 4, but yeah, I'll put it under number 4 because it's part of the technique. Okay, so number 1, let's start. I realized throughout my experience that many of the challenges that students face comes down to these 3 things. The story flow doesn't make sense. Students have no idea how to end the story. I know for a fact that some mother tongue teachers do teach the students to end the composition with a proverb. And so while that's good, sometimes it doesn't match the story, or it's too simple and not something you want not something you can do to get higher marks. And then lastly, it's sometimes difficult to figure out the point or the message of the story. So the best solution that I figured out is actually to start with having a moral of the story first. Okay, or what I call moral of the story, or for short we call it mods. And to plan for the mods, you have to think about a piece of advice that you would like the reader to learn at the end of the story. Okay, it's a piece of advice. So a simple advice could be this: when people find out we lied to them, it can ruin the relationship. So in this particular story, it will be about a character who lied to someone and it ruined the relationship. And this is your main message of the story. So whatever story you want to write, the message of it is your mods, basically. Okay, because if you don't plan the mods, then there's no message behind your story, and that's kind of wasted, I think. So that's the mods. Next, what's next? Okay, when you have a mods, right, you actually know how the story will flow. At least it will guide your story through from the beginning to the end. So that's one important thing. So let's put this one. The first one is it will be your main message of the story. The second benefit, let me get rid of this. The second benefit is the mods will guide your story from the beginning to the end. Okay, because if you don't have a mods, it will not build up to anything logical that makes sense. So if you have a mods, the flow of the story will then make sense. And part B is actually linked to the template later on. And thirdly, the best thing about a mods is that, oops, what did that turn into? See, it will allow you to have allow your story to have an ending that involves the main character reflecting and realizing the mods. So for example, this is actually something very simple that you can end the story with. So for example, let's just write it in italics. No, let's put for example. I'm going to type out an example of the ending of a story. So, as John walked home in the rain, he thought about the events that had just happened to him. So one thing I like to use is this. Just keep note about this. I'll talk more about that later. He realized. Now this sentence is where you can wrap up the story. You can begin wrapping up the story. He realized that he should not have lied to his best friend about what happened. As difficult as it was, he tried to imagine how and then I can just say I can just end it with saying John promised himself never to repeat this mistake ever again. He vowed to himself to do his best and make it up to Tom. That day, John really turned over a new leaf. So, if you realize, just by talking about this part, about how he realized that he should not have lied to Tom, his best friend, about what happened, and then talking about how his best friend, or he imagined how his best friend would have felt, right? It's a terrible feeling. And so these two paragraphs are enough to end the story, and immediately you know, as a reader, you know how the story ends and what was the main message in the story, right? And so something very simple like that can be done with no need to memorize any proverbs or idioms or anything like that. Okay, so what's next? Okay, this part is crucial, number 2. I think looking at it now, I think I combine number 2 and number 3. I'll start with giving you the template first. So this is part number 2. a reliable template for planning. Now, a lot of teachers teach many different planning methods, and I've spent about 5 years scouring through what is the best structure or template for planning, and I think this is, for exam purposes, this is the best. Okay, so there are 5 parts. I call them capture, cause, react, solve, and reflect. Okay, so let me talk a bit about each part. Capture mainly focuses on capturing the interest and to a certain extent curiosity of the reader. And if you're in my group, you would have seen where I started out with a smell and then led to the next paragraph with its suspense. So basically, I highly recommend starting with detailed description of a smell and linking it to the next part, which is the cause. Cause is basically the event that causes the problem in the story. And so if your mods was you shouldn't lie to someone, the problem would be opposite to the mods. Okay, which means to say that the cause is where the character made the mistake. Okay, so he or she did not know the advice. No, I just made the mistake. I think that's fine. Okay, so another simple example would be if your mods is be careful when crossing the road. So then your cause would be the character was callous when crossing the road. It's very straightforward, right? Okay, then this part I think is something that I don't see often when I look at composition guides. This part I think is very important. So the react part describes how the characters react emotionally and mentally. Okay, so you want to plan this ahead, like how are they going to react. So that's all I can really say about this part. It may not be too long, right? It can be even just one paragraph. Sometimes some students, my advanced writers sometimes might write a few paragraphs for this one. So it's not, let me just write that it's not 5 paragraphs, it's just parts, or maybe phases of the story. Okay, just 5 phases. Next is solve, where the characters solve the problem or reach a resolution, right? They arrive at a resolution. This part is usually quite easy to do, so I'm not going to go into it. The last part I think is the most important. The part where the main character reflects on what had happened and the lesson that he has learned, or he or she has learned. Now, this lesson is your mods, hands down, right? This lesson has to be the mods, and so that's why we plan the mods. And so the mods serve several purposes. Like I said before, it is the cause for when the story has a problem, and also it is where you end the story with the reflection of the character. Okay, so I hope so far it's okay. Maybe I'll just pause right here for you to have a look at the template. So you got capture, cause, react, solve, and reflect. I actually got this from, well, it's adapted from a very simple story glove concept in the US. I couldn't find who was the original author, but I adapted it and used words, specifically verbs, to help students remember. So you want to capture the interest of the reader, what caused the problem, how did the characters react, how did the characters solve the problem, and the reflection of the characters. What did they realize? Maybe I should put realize instead of reflect. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's the part about the planning. Maybe let's do a simple planning. Okay, let's go through one set of planning just to show you how it works. And also I want to bring up that point about when I plan, I don't plan the capture part first. I plan cause all the way to reflect, and then I think about what to write for capture. The reason is sometimes when you try to think of a capture, there's too many possibilities, and so that might waste a lot of time. Okay, so let's go to the next page. Okay, so the cause is John. Right, let's take away that. Tom. Okay, I plan. That's a simple event that happened, right? John's best friend. About bringing the new iPhone 8 to class. Of course, the reaction after that, Tom was heartbroken. Now, why was he heartbroken? Not only John lied. Let's make it slightly more painful, slightly more upsetting to Tom. John told his other friends instead, and we have to figure out actually a reason why why John chose these other friends over Tom. And so maybe we can say John wanted to feel like he wanted to feel popular. And so basically what happened here is John lied to Tom so that he can have other classmates praise him when other classmates praised him. Of course, Tom was heartbroken. He thought John would tell him first. No, it's not even telling him first, because John lied to Tom. He said, no, I didn't bring a phone. and instead he did. And so he thought John would tell him the truth, as they have been through many good and bad experiences together. And so how was it solved eventually, right? It's two ways. You can have Tom confronting John. You can have John noticing Tom upset, or you can have the other one that I normally do is you have an unexpected character. Helping to resolve or solve the problem. Right? Either way is fine. The last one is a bit difficult, but that's the main idea. And so reflect will be John realized that his relationship with Tom was, I should change this. Tom was more important than being popular. He apologized to Tom. You can have a cliffhanger, like earlier when I mentioned, let's say Tom didn't give an answer, right? Or it could be Tom forgiving him. Right? And then yeah, it's either way is fine, right? You have an option here. You have an option there. So I think either way is really fine. What else? So that's it. It's a simple plan. One thing to take note, I think that's really important. Oops. Is I think it's really crucial. No more than 3 sentences per part. Okay, the 3 sentences should describe an event in the story. It's a separate event, right? It's just different, almost like different scenes in a movie, right? Different scenes in a movie. And yeah, that's it. And so I don't have the capture yet, so what I can do is, if this was a piece of paper, I could just move it up and say capture. John brought his new iPhone 8 to school and could not wait to show it off to everyone at school. He thought about how popular he would be with everyone, right? So that's what he thought, and then because of that, he forgot about his best friend. And so it's just something about looking at the cause and just making a really simple start. If you look at it, you might think, hey, it's a simple story, right? And this is where I come to the next part. The next part is where you kind of fill in the gaps where it helps to make the story really interesting. And so let's move on to that part. So we're done with part 2, which is a reliable template for planning. And now for the third part, a simple technique to write in order to engage your reader. Let me check the chat in case anyone has sent. Nope, no one has sent. There's 2 people watching now. It's my iPhone and someone else. I have no idea who you are, but thank you for tuning in. Okay, so let's move on to the next part. The next part is, oops. Okay, so this part is what the writing tool that I use is called Pietas. It's a weird name, I know, but it can really help students realize that there are many sentence types that they can write. Usually what happens is when I teach this to students, they realize that they only usually largely write 2 types of sentences. And so what do these letters stand for? So the first is BI, or short for background information. Basically information that tells us about the backstory or the setting. Okay, and then you've got E, which is emotions, information on, you know what, maybe words or phrases that describe how the characters feel. And then you got T, thoughts, words or phrases that describe how the characters think. A, action, words and phrases describe the movement of the characters. Then S, senses, words and phrases that describe, this is a bit different, the 5 senses of the characters. Okay, this one is really interesting. It's not very easy to do, but if you read widely, you'll learn how to create this. So let's choose one part. Let's choose the cause, right? Let's choose the cause, or maybe the react. The react is the best place to do this. So this is the react. Tom was heartbroken. He thought John would tell him the truth, as they have been through many good and bad experiences together. So let's start where Tom overheard a conversation. Maybe I wouldn't do after recess because lessons start. So just before the bell. Right, so this whole sentence, right, it's basically BI. Okay, there's a bit of A right here lined up outside, but it's really about the characters just, you know, talking about what's going on. And this is A as well, right here, quietly chatting to one another. this one is still A. Of course, I can. One thing that you can get your children to do is to look at verbs, like simple verbs like this. Just to make it more interesting, I can just add this word. I can add an emotion word, right? And then automatically I have an emotion there, which is what you want. So using adverbs is a very powerful way to make a simple story more interesting. As he proudly showed his friends the new features of the phone, Tom overheard their hushed conversation. Right, so now we've got proudly, which is an emotion. I wish that wouldn't happen again. Here there's A, overheard their harsh conversation. Quietly gathered here is actually another action. Now, here I want Tom to react. Right, this is me setting up for Tom's reaction. And so I want to put Tom was curious. Now, curious is an interesting word because it involves the thought of a mystery. So it's going to be a T. Tom turned around and immediately, or maybe was immediately heartbroken. Right, so here we have an E, and then here is an A. Right, so this is what I mean by including simple words to just make the story more interesting. If I want to put in senses in here, I would say I think churn is the right word. Okay, so this is senses, uncomfortable churn in his stomach. This is what I mean by showing and not telling, right? An upset heart, right? The heart belongs to Tom. He's upset, so you can say an upset heart. And I can slip in one emotion here as well. Disappointed. Okay. And that's it. I can even drag this a bit more, because here we've said he's been through many good and bad experiences together. So I want to kind of elaborate on this. So I want to say his mind wandered off, trying to think of a reason why John did not tell him about his new phone. Now at this point I realized that John didn't really lie to him. but John didn't tell him first. So you might be thinking, wait, the mods is different, you know. Can I change the mods as I plan? My answer to you is no problem. Okay. If you think along the way your mods has got to change, just change it. So long as you have a mods and that's something you can end the story with. That's far more important. And so let me see if I can make sure that this is on a page by itself. It's 13. Okay, let me change everything to 12 and hopefully you can fit. Okay, lovely, you can fit on a page. And so just have a look. If I want to color code this, maybe let me do that. I usually do that and then people find it really useful when I do that. So let's make this green because it's like the background. Let's make emotions orange. Pastel colors are good. Thoughts, let's make it blue. Action, let's make it yellow or orange or gold. Apparently this is gold. And senses, let's take, what other colors can we take that are quite obvious? Pink? Yeah, why not pink? Okay, so let's this one. Until here is about BI. Okay, so BI. And then lined up outside the classroom, we have the action. Quietly chattering to one another. Action. I'm just gonna color code all the action. And then you can really see like you can do this with your children and just I'll show you what I do later, but you can really see how much of the composition is filled with a particular sentence type. So here is also A. Upset heart. Disappointed. His mind wandered, trying to think of a reason why. It's just thought. This part, why John did not tell him, I think this is not action, but more PI, just background information. It's part of the backstory. They didn't tell. So yep, that's it. It's quite. Oh, this I missed out E. And what you want is you want a mix of colors basically. You don't want too many action and BI, which happens quite often. One thing we can do, very simple, just type up BIETAS. Oops. Let's decrease this. There we go. And then on the side of each paragraph, right? On the side of each paragraph. Let's remove this so I get more space. Beside each paragraph. And then what you want to do is you want to read parts and phrases, words, sentences, and then think about whether the part is a BI or the part is an emotion, and you want to tick it. Okay, you want to tick. So right here you have two BIs, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 E's. That's not bad actually. 1, 2, 2 thoughts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh wait, we have another. Proudly showed his friends. Here it's a bit weird, right? We've got it's combined, and that's absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine. Here we have A, so that's fine. So we have one more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 senses. We've got 1, and that is fine. Okay. If you were to analyze your child's, and if they write, you know, as most students would write, what you'll realize is you will have a lot of BI and a lot of A, and not enough of this too. Okay, what is the so-called secret of writing more E and T? It's not really a huge secret, right? The answer to that is you've got to empathize. You empathize with, did I spell that right? Empathize. I think I spelled it right. Empathy. No, empathize. There we go. Nope, with a Z. Yes. Empathize with the character. Imagine how they feel and describe the feeling rather than telling the feeling or stating the feeling. You want to describe the feeling, and then you want to consider their thoughts, right? Consider the thoughts of the character. And so this is how you can think about, oh, did he think this way? Did he think that way? Why did he think this way? Why did he think that way? So like Tom was curious, like why were they curious? But he turned around, he found out, right? And then he was heartbroken. And so yeah, I think that's it. If you do have any questions, please leave it in the chat. I don't see any questions yet, but if you do, just please type it in the chat. Otherwise, I'll just end it here since there aren't anyone around. So I'll publish this in the group. If you're in the group, you'll have access to this, and hopefully this will help. Yep. If you do have any questions, please do type it out. I'll probably give you a couple of minutes. Where's the part? Yeah. Okay, I guess if there's no questions, I'll just end it here. And thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next workshop.